I feel I have an interesting love story. When I first heard the name Curt Barker, it was in a business setting. After he left our company, he wanted to find out how we were doing, so we forged a friendship, and I got to know another side of him. And that side was very intelligent, very caring. He was very communicative, very interesting, very well read. He was an artist, and that had a sensitive side to him. And from not really liking him very much, I fell in love with him very quickly. So we were in a long-distance relationship at the time, and so he eventually moved to Florida. It wasn't long thereafter that I realized that the intelligent, capable, interesting man wasn't the same. And what we learned after about a year and a half was that he had early onset of dementia at the age of 54. And I didn't really understand at that time what that meant. I just knew that I loved this man and that whatever that meant, I was going to take care of him and we were going to do this together. Soon after his diagnosis, we got married and we started going through his bucket list, and that included a lot of travel. First trip we took was a cruise to Italy. So I was able to show him my country and introduce him to some of my family. And we continued to do that until we could no longer travel. 45 days before Curt actually passed, his daughter and grandson, his brand new granddaughter, came to visit, and we had a wonderful time. We had a family gathering at the home, and he so enjoyed every moment of it, especially meeting his and playing with his grandchildren. It was not a week later that Curt was in the hospital and completely unconscious in a way of not knowing what was going on. He spent 3 weeks in the hospital and he could no longer eat or talk or walk. But when he did come home, I really had no idea of what I was in for. And I wished at that point I had called hospice sooner. I didn't understand that hospice could have helped me months before this point. They could have brought in nurses and aides and any help that I could have used. But I waited to the last possible moment, if you will, and I shouldn't have. On the day I was finally ready, they came and got him, and I was able to go with him to the Mid-Pinellas facility where they had an opening. And the first thing I remember was the two aides that came in with us to the room, Robia and Tina. And the first thing they did is they made him comfortable, they gave him a sponge bath, and then they rubbed him with cream and massaged him. And it really calmed him down because he'd been really anxious before that. And I remember Robia just caressing his face and just loving on him. To see their love and care for a man they just met was incredibly touching and made me relax because I could take a breath at that point. I could release all the stress and the worry and become his wife again. That's what I had lost in the last 3 years of his life. I was no longer his wife. I was a caregiver. I could just sit with him and talk to him and not worry about anything, but put my complete focus on my husband. And that was a gift. It's the last week that I remember with only good memories. It was just such a calming, relieving, peaceful experience in the midst of tremendous loss. But on the morning of his death, I never took my eyes off of his face. I watched every breath until the last one. The support from hospice didn't stop there. They gave me the time I needed to be with him. They made sure that all the preparations were in place. They made the phone calls they needed to make for me. And when he was taken out of his room, I'll never forget all the aides, the nurses, the doctors that were around. They lined up in the hall and they honored him, this man that they didn't know. So I agreed to share my story because I hope that with the dollars that we can raise for hospice, that more people will be able to feel the peace, the thankfulness, the gratefulness, and the hope that I feel for our community and the services of hospice. With Curt, he was such a generous man, and we gave philanthropically to many organizations that were dear to our heart. And I just kind of felt that Curt would want me to do what I could do best, and that is to help communicate about hospice and help raise the funds that are needed to continue their good works. And I think knowing what I'm doing now, seeing what I'm doing, knowing that I have a purpose again in life, he'd really be proud of me.